I want to just tag what Beasley said there at the end because he was talking about the quarterback contracts in the league and just kind of the tiers of where everybody's at.
Yeah.
And that first tier, that top 5 is Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers. Those are the guys making $50 million or more per year. Then you've got Russ, Kyler Murray at 46, Deshaun Watson at 46, and then Josh Allen at 43 a year. And I'm looking at that and I say, and if I'm Tua, I'm saying I deserve more than all of those guys except for Josh Allen. So I'm expecting this contract here coming up to be in the low to mid 50s a year.
Yeah. And first off, the Josh Allen, they locked him in.
Right. That's how you do it.
They locked in Josh and the Chargers. They locked in Herbert.
Right.
Herbert, like that's the one, as you read that list, because we actually talked about that list because I looked it up too. I'm like,
Mr. 305.
Dale.
We'll get back to it, but
Dale.
more pressing issues here.
Dale.
Thank you, Jimmy.
hey,
You're welcome. And golden Oreos are better than the original.
Wow.
Jimmy,
Wow.
you know I fool with you, Jimmy.
What are
You
trying
know
to
I
say,
fool
Jimmy?
with you, Jimmy.
What are
Them
you trying to
golden
say?
Oreos can get out of here. I don't even know what flavor they are.
You know, I was shocked to see the amount of hate I was getting on the text line after my Oreo take earlier. I think Jimmy is about to wear it like I did.
Yeah, Jimmy, that golden Oreo stuff, bro. I'm sorry, Jimbo.
Why do you like the golden Oreos better than the regular Oreos, Jimmy?
They just taste better.
That's a lie.
Hmm.
Oh, because they're lighter.
Yeah, I think we're realizing something here.
Jimmy, man, I had your back for years.
They might actually he might be on to something though. They might actually taste better. He's not entirely wrong. I hate to defend Jimmy because you guys know I don't like him, but he's not entirely wrong there.
They're better. They're not nasty, but they're better than the originals.
They might be, bro. They might be.
The yellow little ones, the ones that don't even have the thins or the double stuff. They have no.
They do have the double
no
stuff.
gradation. They have double stuff golden.
Yes.
They have no satiation.
Satiation. Why you try new words on this show all the time?
I don't know. It felt right though when I said it. It felt right.
It did sound good.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Crowder, because I was very interested to hear what you had to say about Tua getting paid. But
yeah, no. That's what I was saying. So as Josh read that list, you're looking at it, and Herbert, like you're talking about, you're getting to Kyler Murray. Tua is better than Kyler Murray, flat out 100%. Like you start looking at some of these guys, Deshaun Watson, who I personally know, like Tua right now is better than Deshaun Watson. I don't know if he had that year where he had to come back from all the crap he went through, and we'll see it this year in Cleveland. But when you start going into that second tier you were talking about, Josh, Tua's better than those guys. So when you get into that $40 million range, Burrow, Mahomes, who else was up there?
Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, and then Aaron Rodgers, the last guy over 50 a year.
Hurts, Lamar, and Aaron Rodgers is living off his past, and Aaron's a very good quarterback. But that Herbert deal is what Tua wants now. It's like, hey, I'm good enough, and we know Justin Herbert and Tua are going to be compared their entire career because they were taking one pick away from each other. But that's the thing. The Chargers locked into Herbert and said, we believe that you're the future. The Dolphins haven't locked into Tua yet. So if I was Tua, after all the names you put up there, Josh, I would say I would point, if I was Tua's agent, I'd point at Herbert every single time I meet and say, this is what I need. I need that because he hasn't done anything postseason. I haven't done anything postseason, but I'm better than him.
It's not only that, but Herbert had the worst playoff loss than Tua did last year. And like Beasley brought up that Herbert hasn't really won anything yet. Like I'm thinking about it in my head. Do you remember like the regular season game that Herbert won? That was pivotal. Like he puts up the numbers and it's hard to disagree. And it's hard to say to not get excited when you watch him just during a game because physically it's really impressive. When you get down to the results, like and I know it's more than just the quarterback, and win-loss isn't a quarterback record, but when you're like comparing one guy to the next and a lot of things are equal, like where's the big game that Justin Herbert has won in his career? Like that's a big knock on Tua, and Tua won more quote-unquote big/important games this year than I feel like Herbert has in his career.
But I will say, to be fair, and I agree with you, by the way, I think Tua is a better quarterback than Justin Herbert is this year and going into next year as well. But the same way we talk about Tua and we say, well, the first couple seasons, throw him out the window because he had Brian Flores and he was being limited by Brian Flores. And we can only truly evaluate him now that he has Mike McDaniel, who has obviously done wonders to his career, which I'm with, by the way. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, you have to keep that same energy with Justin Herbert, don't you? Because the dude's had, 3 head coaches in his 4 seasons in the NFL, and he's had a different offensive coordinator, I think, every single season he's been in the NFL. So if you're going to use those excuses for Tua and, justify why, hey, don't pay attention to the first couple seasons of his career, why can't you use those same excuses for Herbert? And again, I'm not defending Justin Herbert. I think Tua is a better quarterback than him. But I see the way that we jump through obstacles to defend Tua and the first seasons where he looked limited and he didn't look like a good quarterback, but we don't use those same excuses or validate them for Justin Herbert.
No, we do. We do. Brandon Staley, he made the goofiest damn decisions in the history of football last year when he kept going forward on 4th and 2 on his own 30. He was not a good coach. Before that, was it Anthony Lynn?
Yep.
They had his coach come in, Anthony Lynn. Like Anthony Lynn got fired for a reason. No, I'm just saying Tua, to the contract standpoint of people that are saying, like, why did you pay Tua? I'm not saying that Tua is just flat out better. To your point, Justin Herbert had some bad situations in his career, and Tua had some messed up situations in his career because his first year, his offensive coordinator was 97 years old.
Manila folder.
And he didn't have a playbook, Josh. Chan Gailey, we found out later, he lost his playbook because that's what old people do. They lose things. So Tua and Justin Herbert were hamstrung throughout their career. But if Herbert can get $50 million a year, I don't want to say Tua's that much better than him or Herbert's that much better than him. You look at the numbers, Herbert has more passing yards, Tua has more touchdowns. Like, go back and forth, but they're very similar. So that's why I said if I was Tua's representation, I wouldn't point at Patrick Mahomes because you can argue with me. I wouldn't point at Joe Burrow. You can argue with me. I wouldn't point at Lamar Jackson because they have MVPs. I would point at Justin Herbert and says, if I'm not better than him, I'm just as good as him. And I think, to your point, Solana, we'll give them both passes on some years and some bad coaching. But if Herbert can get 50, I need 50.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100% there. And I think that's important context too. But, Staley wears a lot of that playoff loss to Jacksonville. He wears a lot of that Raider fiasco where they could have taken the time, made the playoffs, and then he didn't take a timeout. I think that's what happened. And then the Raiders ended up getting a first down, kicking the field goal, and winning the game at the end of overtime. But I think the one difference here with the situations they came into the league in, Tua did not have a semblance of a supporting cast until they brought Tyreek in. And that was, year 3 of his career? Mm-hmm. Like, Herbert walked in with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and a solid tight end. Like, they had guys there. And he has put up the numbers, but, just the wins haven't followed. And I'm sure that whatever sports radio stations in LA, they're doing this exact same show and they talk about Herbert and Tua and they make all these same arguments because I think the situations have a lot of similarities. Physically, they're very different, but I mean, Tua has one more than Herbert has in the league so far. And I agree with you, Crowder. I think that's probably the guy that Tua's representation will point at in these negotiations. And it doesn't seem like these negotiations are very tension-filled. It seems like this is going to get done. It's just a matter of time.
He's won more, but he hasn't really won anything. And neither has Justin Herbert.
That's fair. No, for sure. I'm with you.
And this conversation is as simple as what you're both saying. And Crowder, I agree with you. And this has been my point the entire time when we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa's extension. If I'm Tua and I saw what Herbert got paid, and I saw what Lamar Jackson got paid, and I saw what all these guys got paid, Joe Burrow, I'm not playing for anything that's significantly less than what they made. Why? Look at my numbers. if you believe in me the same way the Chargers believe in Herbert, if you're buying into me the same way that the Bengals bought in to Joe Burrow, I deserve to be paid in the same category as they are. And that should be Tua Tagovailoa's position, and everybody around him that's advising him, his agent, his family, should be saying the same thing. Don't take anything less. But if I'm the Dolphins, I'm saying, okay, yeah, we believe in you, but we're not certain you can win us the big game because you haven't proven to us that you can win the big game. And if we allocate this amount of money to you, it's only going to make our job harder in the future to put the necessary pieces around you that we believe can elevate you to that status. So, like, that's the game that you're playing right now, right? And are the Dolphins just going to succumb to, well, we have to pay him then if he's not like, I don't know. I don't know what Chris Grier and the Dolphins do because, man, like, it's not a hot take to say he's not in the same category as Joe Burrow. Like, no. He's not. He's just not.
No.
But do you pay him just because?
It's crazy you were going to say that because I was going to bring up to Josh because it was a conversation that we had with Hawk Solana where, Josh, they asked me recently, they said, would you want Tua or Trevor Lawrence? And I started thinking, like, I got silent, and they were like, this is a hard decision. And I was like, yes, because you brought up the Charger game with the Jaguars, and I've seen Trevor Lawrence fight back from 2 touchdowns down in the playoffs and go and win a game. And I haven't seen that signature win out of Tua. That's what we talked about. The Buffalo game late last year, the Baltimore game late last year, the first Kansas City game, the second Kansas City game. And that's what I think Tua's Achilles heel right now is going to play good quarterbacks and beating them when it's a close game late. We know what happened in Kansas City with the underthrow in the fourth quarter when they were down by 7. Philadelphia last year, they were down by single digits in the fourth quarter. Like, you're in games. Yeah. And you have to capitalize on those games. And I've seen some of these other quarterbacks. So the difference between me picking Trevor Lawrence over Tua was that I saw Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs come back from double-digit deficit and win a game when it mattered. And I don't know what that game is for Tua. I don't know if you have one, Josh, but I don't know what that game is for Tua.
I mean, I guess the one that I would point to just from this year is Dallas, but that wasn't a multi-score deficit that they overcome, but he led a fourth quarter drive to put them in position to win the game. Like, and the other thing too is, like, I think sometimes fourth quarter comeback and game-winning drives can be a bit of a misleading stat. I mean, the Dolphins were in front in a lot of these games. Like, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to do that. And in some of those games they lost, they were also down by a lot. Like the Baltimore game, they were down by a lot. Philadelphia, when it got to that point, they were down by 2 scores. Part of that is on him, no doubt. And all this criticism is fair. And it's just, you're not going to know until you know. And that's just kind of the limbo the Dolphins are in right now. But you also can't just move on from this guy and it's not the same Tannehill limbo that they were in for 7 years. Like, we know Tua's a good quarterback. It's just, I guess, how good and where you think you could eventually go. But what are the options that are better? And there really isn't one out there.
The Dallas game is his signature win, and that was a hell of a win. He led you on that fourth quarter drive, but everything that followed the Dallas game, to me, it's like you took 1 step forward with that Dallas game, and then you took 10. It's not just 2 steps back or a step back. You took 10 steps back after that Dallas game. And the big concerns going into the Baltimore game on the road and then Buffalo at home was the defense. The injuries to the defense. How would the Dolphins be able to overcome the injuries to the defense? And it was the offense that struggled in those games. In the second half against Buffalo, I mean, they had 70-something total yards of offense.
Wasn't good enough.
And you can go play by play and say, well, offensive holding, you're like, okay, but at some point, hey, Patrick Mahomes figured it out this year. Joe Burrow got his team to a Super Bowl. Like, those guys dealt with injuries too. They dealt with bad rosters at point as well. Like, at some point, it's enough with the excuses, and it's just like, hey, can this guy win you a game that you need to win against another elite quarterback? And I think that's where our questioning comes in. We don't know.